and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind. Enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they will have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Thank you, Mr. Riley Temple, Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Adams, and Dr. Franklin. And you thought you were warm out there. Let's give them a hand just for us keeping their cool today. How stirring it is to hear those words just as they were written 232 years ago. Now, Private Hector will read the names of the colonies and the signers of the Declaration.
colonial times, it was customary to show one's approval by loudly shouting, "Huzzah!" After what? Oh, you getting it? We're representing a proud people. These are proud men representing proud people. So, after the names of the signers of each state are read, we must shout our approval. So, when we get done, I'll lead you in a huzzah after each state. Let's try it. Huzzah! Huzzah! I think you'll get better. Now for the names. New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple, and Matthew Thornton. Huzzah! Massachusetts. Don't get ahead of me. Samuel Adams. John Adams. Robert Treat Payne. Elbridge Gary. Huzzah! Rhode Island. Stephen Hopkins and William Ellery. Huzzah! Connecticut. Roger Sherman. Samuel Huntington. William Williams and Oliver Wolcott. Huzzah! Georgia. Button Gwinnett. Lyman Hall and George Walton. Huzzah! Maryland. Samuel Chase. William Baker. Thomas Stone. Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Huzzah! Virginia. George Wythe. Richard Henry Lee. Thomas Jefferson. Benjamin Harrison. Thomas Nelson Jr. Francis Lightfoot Lee. Carter Braxton. Huzzah! New York. William Lloyd. Philip Livingston. Francis Lewis. Lewis Morris. Huzzah! Pennsylvania. Robert Morris. Benjamin Rush. Benjamin Franklin. John Morton. George Clymer. James Smith. George Taylor. James Wilson. And George Ross. Huzzah! Delaware. Caesar Rodney. George Reed. Thomas McCain. Huzzah! North Carolina. William Hooper. Joseph Hughes. John Penn. Huzzah! North Carolina. South Carolina. North Carolina was so good I thought I'd do it twice. South Carolina. Edward Rutledge. Thomas Hayward Jr. Thomas Lynch Jr. and Arthur Middleton. Huzzah! And New Jersey. Richard Stockton. John Witherspoon. Francis Hopkinson. John Hart. And Abraham Clark. Huzzah!
Take a moment right now and tell